Officials in a Democrat-controlled areas across the United States are scrambling to handle the arrival of thousands of undocumented migrants.
The Republican governors of Texas, Arizona, and Florida have arranged for these migrants to be transported to New York City, Washington, D.C., Chicago, and Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts.
The number of migrants sent to Martha's Vineyard, just 0.0025 of the total encounters at the border so far this fiscal year. And Martha's Vineyard quickly shipped them out to Cape Cod.
Instead of scrambling and worrying about a bunch of rich people and having 50, and oh, by the way, they already bust them out. They're gone. They said we want everyone. No one's illegal, and they're gone within 48 hours.
God is dawn. Like and subscribe. Comment some night. Love in this light. Yes, God is dawn. God is dawn. God is dawn.
Peace, world, peace. Welcome back to Goddess Dawn Speaks. I am Goddess Dawn, the warrior baby, back with another news headline that caught my attention. Okay, let's get into it.
Ubaldo Arcaya was in San Antonio, Texas yesterday, along with 50 other Venezuelan migrants. Today, he's in Martha's Vineyard. When you got off the plane, I asked him, what did you think of this place? Beautiful, gorgeous, he says. The people are very friendly. He says in Texas, he was promised help if he got on the plane. No idea where he was going. There were three options, he says. Washington, Utah, here in Massachusetts, whatever was available. The plane left and brought us here. It's a tactic we've seen in Texas, Arizona, and now Florida. Republican governors shipping migrants to so-called sanctuary cities and states with little to no notice.
Venezuela is facing a severe humanitarian emergency with millions unable to access basic health care and adequate nutrition, limited access to safe water in homes and healthcare centers, and a vaccination plan marred by opacity may have contributed to the spread of COVID-19. Persistent concerns include brutal policing practices, abject prison conditions, impunity for human rights violations, and harassment of human rights defenders and independent media. The exodus of Venezuelans fleeing repression and humanitarian emergency represents the largest migration crisis in recent Latin American history. So this is serious. Yeah, these migrants are coming over in droves. And Ron DeSantis decided to take matters into his own hands by not only shipping 50 people into a whole other state, but he actually picked them up from Texas and flew them there on private planes. So if you're not aware, Martha's Vineyard is a Massachusetts island, a wealthy New England summer colony located in the Atlantic, just south of Cape Cod. Yeah, it encompasses harbor towns, lighthouses, sandy beaches, farmlands. It's only accessible by boat or air. And this is an average home in Martha's Vineyard. The population is at about 17,265. That's from a 2018 census. Though the summer population can swell, they say, to more than 100,000 people. About 56% of the vineyard are seasonally occupied. The cost of living on Martha's Vineyard is 60% higher than the national average. So there are severe income inequalities between the year-round residents and the seasonals. So this is where the story began for me. So I had to look a little deeper. But before I go there, I want you to think about why Ron DeSantis, governor of the state of Florida, chose to fly with two private planes, 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard, a wealthy resort town, a summer colony at the end of summer. The timing is important here, as is the fact that of the 1/3 of the national workforce that they make up, 36% of them do groundskeeping, 36% do building and maintenance work, 27% are in the hotel service industry, and 21% work in home health care. Is it fair to ask if they were sent to Martha's Vineyard to clean these newly vacated homes, to work on the landscaping, to spruce up the grounds? And of course, the hotels get more business during the off season. Wouldn't they need more workers? I'd say so. Filthy and foul is what it is. You cannot tell me there's not backdoor deals happening between DeSantis and the powers that be of Martha's Vineyard. They got all this press and backlash and got scared though. So they called the National Guard and had the migrants bust out to a nearby military base. Can you imagine being one of these people traveling for days, some more than a month, to get here with one idea of what's happening? It turns out to be something else. With all of the newly emptied homes, which are really mansions, let's be real, they couldn't house these people temporarily so they could get sorted out. Do they not deserve, as human beings, a shower, some food, and some rest? A moment to figure out what's next? I want to move on to what's been happening before DeSantis pulled this very cold and callous stunt. A stunt that I haven't even gotten into the full details on yet. So stay with me. I promise you I'll get there. I know most of you probably already know the situation, but hang out here for a few minutes. And what I've come to learn is that as far back as May of this year, Governor Greg Abbott of Texas and Governor of Arizona, Doug Ducey, they've both been busing migrants regularly from the southern borders to locations in New York, Washington, D.C., and Tennessee. Now, these are GOP governors using these poor migrants as political pawns, or really ammunition, against their Democratic counterparts. Washington, D.C. was said to have been a chosen destination because of the proximity to VP Kamala Harris's residence.
More busloads of migrants arriving in sanctuary cities, and it's causing quite the meltdown among Democrats. Today, illegal immigrants were dropped off outside of Vice President Kamala Harris's home in Washington, D.C. In an interview with Vice News, Harris slammed Texas Governor Abbott and Florida Governor DeSantis, saying, quote, "I think it is the height of irresponsibility, much less just, frankly, a dereliction of duty." Meantime, migrants are pouring over the southern border. Look at this. Our Fox News drone team capturing hundreds of them crossing illegally. That is incredible video there.
There was a threat to send a busload of migrants to Delaware, Joe Biden's hometown, but the bus was instead sent to Tennessee. Here are the press waiting for the migrants to show up in Delaware. Nobody showed up. Now, supposedly, word got out due to the flight log was exposed, and it showed after the trip to Martha's Vineyard, they were supposed to land in Delaware, but instead they ended up in Tennessee. Now, when they landed in Tennessee, nobody knew they were coming. They say Tennessee officials also have had to scramble to accommodate busloads of migrants getting dropped off without notice in Chattanooga. In a 48-hour period over the weekend, Chattanooga helped 51 immigrants that were aboard buses shipped to the Big Apple by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. A lot of folks are just lost. This is Chattanooga's director of special projects. They come from another country where they speak another language and they're dropped off in the middle of America. Many of them just need help or need a finger pointing in the right direction to their next step. Smith said 4 of the migrants that stopped in his city were picked up by family, while the rest headed for the airport for final destinations in Ohio, Chicago, and Florida. Immigrant children were spotted getting off the bus in Tennessee and asking for money and food when the bus stopped. Arrests at the U.S.-Mexico border is on pace to top 2 million for the first time ever. These politicians are playing games with people's lives, and more of them are signing up for these pre-election games. DeSantis joined Abbott and Busey, and more might be too, but they may want to rethink things now that criminal investigations have been launched and class action lawsuits have been filed. I'm going to read some of the details here about that. Last week, about 50 Latin American asylum seekers were flown from Texas to Martha's Vineyard on 2 flights arranged by Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis. A number of people aboard the planes had told reporters that a woman who identified herself as Perla had approached them at a shelter outside San Antonio and promised that after being flown to Boston, they would receive work opportunities and housing assistance. It was, by all accounts, a callous political stunt, but a similar practice has been underway throughout the summer, with thousands of people sent by bus from Texas and Arizona to Washington, D.C. and New York. The mayor of New York, Eric Adams, has threatened legal action against Texas, as has a group of lawyers in Massachusetts. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, has asked the Justice Department to consider kidnapping charges in the case of the people sent to Martha's Vineyard. So yeah, those flights, those private planes, cost Florida taxpayers $1.5 million. DeSantis tapped into a $12 million fund approved by the Republican legislature to relocate unauthorized aliens from Florida to other locations. But the 2 aircraft were sent to retrieve asylum seekers in Texas, which then sent them to Martha's Vineyard. And this was a misuse of those funds, per Democrat Charlie Crist and other Democratic leaders. Now, of course, there are people who argue that this was a necessary wake-up call for Biden and his Democratic co-workers and base to understand the pressure they're under from the millions of migrants that come into the border states illegally each year.
Is about Texans, and Texans are fed up with what the Biden administration has done on our border, the chaos that it's caused, the damage that is caused in the state of Texas. And that is exactly why we are sending these illegal immigrants to places like Washington, D.C. and New York City.
You know, the political opponents across the aisle from you, everybody from Governor Hochul here in New York to Eric Adams and others, Muriel Bowser down in D.C., are using the term political pawns, and they're accusing you of putting the illegal immigrants in the middle of this. What's your response?
Well, my response, first of all, is this is rank hypocrisy by the New York governor, by the New York mayor. Listen, New York is a sanctuary city. Mayor Adams said that they welcome in illegal immigrants. Once they have to deal with the reality of it, they're suddenly flummoxed and they cannot handle it. They are now getting a taste of what we're having to deal with. Here's one of the most important things that our fellow Americans can do is to realize for themselves the challenges that Texas is dealing with every day.
Yes.
Only when they see will the Biden administration begin to have to realize the Biden administration is going to have to finally start enforcing the laws passed by Congress that secure the border.
So what does Biden have to say about all this? Said F you all. Good night. Oh boy. President Joe Biden has accused Republican governors of playing politics with human beings, using them as props. Speaking at a gala for the Congressional Hispanics Caucus Institute, he said, "What they're doing is simply wrong." This has been a hot button topic for decades, honestly. But as of more recently, especially when Trump was in office, he ran on this topic. Honestly, this platform was how he galvanized his base. As refugee experiences go, being put on a bus or a plane and ending up thousands of miles from a place one might have wanted to go or thought one was going is ordinary. When people fleeing violence and disaster seek protection from national governments and international organizations, they learn that beggars at the citizenship table cannot be choosers. These migrants, once they're processed in as asylum seekers, instantly became a part of the homeless population and also put pressure on the city's resources, food programs, medical care, housing. These things can negatively impact communities if not handled efficiently and effectively. And if you, like me, know anything about the county and city behind the scenes operations, in most states, efficient and effective would not be the words you can use to accurately describe them. So, needless to say, this can be problematic for a state that receives double and triple the numbers that other states do. And I get that. But it doesn't give these governors the right to manipulate these people into being bused and flown places without their knowledge or consent. As asylum seekers, they are disadvantaged when it comes to their rights. But as human beings, they are protected by the Constitution. And there is actually documented evidence that immigrants do positively contribute to the economy by way of labor market efficiency. They say efficiency gains for non-degree native-born workers is $5 to $10 billion annually. With everything, there are pros and cons, but it's really the lack of effective immigration policies and laws. It takes time to fix things like policies and laws, but it doesn't take as much time for smart workarounds. Communities need to work within themselves and with each other on a human level to help these people find their way. The mayor of New York, Eric Adams, was also receiving busloads of migrants in great numbers.
When you look at some of the documents he had the migrants sign, specifically directing them to New York City, this is just not who we are as Americans. All of us, we came from somewhere. We need to be clear on that. And to place someone on a bus for 45 hours without medical care, without food, water, proper sanitary conditions, and just send them to a city that they know nothing about. That is traumatic for anyone. And I believe the way he's behaving by not coordinating the transportation and sending people under false promises is just un-American. And it's unfortunate that he chose to carry out this humanitarian crisis in this way.
And I have to say, I agree with him here. I mean, the least they could have done is alerted the cities that they were going to be sending these migrants to. Sounds like they were just kind of dropping them off like surprise, you know what I'm saying? And that just wasn't the right way to handle these people. Now, with regard to Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, I don't know. I mean, as I'm speaking, he's building an intake center in Times Square. I mean, it sounds good, but like, why? Why has Eric so quietly taken on this challenge? This stuff wasn't really on the radar until the Martha's Vineyard came out. Much of the story was barely a blip on anyone's radar. And remember, Eric Adams is a good friend of our flashy pastor. So I got to side eye him. I mean, New York has enough problems. Why allow this one in the back door? I'd love to know. Sounds like someone's pockets are being padded to me. And it's a damn shame. Allegedly, of course. But they had a good question for him with regard to the already homeless population, because once these people come into your city, they don't have anything, nowhere to go. So they're instantly a part of the homeless population.
Mayor, the New York Post has a report today where they talk to some of the people in shelters that are from our area, that are New Yorkers who can't afford, a roof over their head. And some of them feel that the migrants are being treated better than they are. They got gift cards, new backpacks, new clothes. What do you say to those people who've been in our system for all this time and they feel like, well, they're being pushed to the back?
It's not true. We treat everyone who seeks shelter assistance the same way. Is universal on how we treat people. That is what we've always done. And I take my hat off to the employees who are dealing with this humanitarian crisis. And so if people feel that way, that is not true. Everyone is treated with the level of dignity that they deserve.
It's just, Mayor, I mean, we're native New Yorkers. We got so many problems here. 99 problems at least. I mean, you're talking about crime, you're talking about NYCHA, you got people, the homeless system, shelters are strained to capacity. I mean, how much more can New York City bear? I mean, can we keep welcoming more and more when we have so many problems we can't deal with right now?
Well, I'm glad you raised that, because we do have a lot going on, and that is why leadership is important. I've gone through crises throughout my time as a public official, from 9/11 to fighting back crime during the mid-'80s. Fighting crises calls the right leadership. And this is why it's important that I put together a staff that could respond to the crises we're facing. New Yorkers have dealt with crises throughout the years. And yes, it's a lot for everyday New Yorkers. But again, I believe in the city, and I believe in the people in the city, and we're going to live up to the law. The law requires that no matter who comes to this city, we have to give them shelter. That is the law, and we're going to follow the law.
All right, Mayor Adams, good luck.
Politics and personal gain should never be the reason for a person's mistreatment. This is not just men and women seeking a better lifestyle. These are people making these arduous journeys to the U.S., and it's life or death for them.
CBS News national correspondent Manuel Bojorquez visited a processing center in El Paso, Texas, where he talked to migrants who are hoping to be among those allowed to stay.
These are their first steps into the United States. Migrants arrive here sometimes nervous, often exhausted, but hopeful.
So you see hope and opportunity, not only for you, but for your family that's left behind. Tu familia que queda atrás.
Exactamente, mi familia. Fabricio Hoyos has been traveling for a month.
Almost a month on the road.
Casi un mes. 7 countries, 7 países. A dangerous journey from Venezuela, where he says others died along the way while crossing through a jungle.
You rather risk your life over this 1-month journey over staying in Venezuela. There's no guarantee. Can't buy medicine. No education.
They have babies and children in their arms. They're looking to the U.S. for a place so they can have a real life, work, build a home and a family, the American dream, Homeland Security has created a rule to discourage immigrant families from receiving health care, nutrition, and housing assistance. They're calling it a chill effect. It's called the Public Charge Rule, and it was finalized in August of 2019. The Public Charge Rule directs immigration officials to reject applications from individuals who seek to remain in or enter the U.S., who have received or are more likely than not to receive in the future any of an array of public benefits that are tied to need. The rule has 2 main impacts: make it harder for those currently of modest means to gain lawful entry into the country as a permanent resident, and it will make immigrant families fear receiving benefits such as SNAP, which used to be called food stamps, Medicaid, and housing benefits. Keep in mind that for most immigrants, these programs are necessary for them and their families to thrive. This is why they call it the chill effect. They are icing these people out by removing access to these programs. This will cause more hardship in the long run, especially for the children. This is a messy, messy issue that is unfortunately being used for political gain. The Republicans are blaming Joe Biden's lax immigration enforcement as the crux of the issue, citing that under Trump's administration, the numbers were far less. Governor Greg Abbott has been very vocal about what he calls Biden's open border policy. I think we can all agree that Biden alone cannot fix this, and especially with the amount of time he has left in office. So what's the solution? Just to continue to let everyone in and deal with the consequences as they come? Or just return the migrants back to their homelands? These GOP governors feel that every state needs to get a busload of migrants every day on their doorstep to even things out, whether they want to go or not. What do you think about that? I want to know. Let me know in the comments, for real. I mean, as far as I can tell, the fix for this issue will be a long time coming. As things stand, all we can really do as individuals is vote. Yeah, you do have a voice. Don't let anyone discourage you from using it, especially at the polls. We have midterm elections coming up. And then Trump, he's trying to come back in 2024, y'all. We can't let that happen. Vote, vote, vote. That's all I got, y'all. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Yes, till next time. Peace.